This is the lecture for lesson 7. This section is going to get us started in the rectangular coordinate system. We're going to plot some points on the XY coordinate system, graph a few equations by plotting points, find the distance formula and the midpoint formula. The first thing we're going to do is plot some points in the Cartesian coordinate system. Remembering that your x-axis is from left to right and your y-axis is the up and down. And when you plot a point, it is x followed by y. So the first number is going to tell us if we move left or right, and the second number is going to tell us if we move up or down. A wants to be plotted at -2, 3. So I'm going to go -2, left 2, and then up 1, 2, 3. Put a dot, and I'm going to label that point A. B is at the location +1, +4. So +1 is right 1, and then up 4 is point B. And the last point, C, is at 5, -1. So X is at 5, and then I move down 1 to get -1, and there is C. The next thing we can do is graph an equation by plotting some points. We are going to create a little XY table. We can do -2, -1, 0, +1, and +2. And we're just going to plug these values in for x and determine what the y coordinate is so we can graph and connect them to either create a line or a curve, whatever it is that we are graphing. -2 times -2 plus 3. Well, -2 times -2 is 4. 4 plus 3 is 7. So there's our first point. -2, 7. I'm going to plug in -1. -2 times -1 plus 3. Well, -2 times -1 is 2. 2 plus 3 is 5. So -1 is at 5. Plugging in 0. -2 times 0 is 0. Add 3 is 3. So 0, 3 is the next point here. And you should see that we are creating a nice little line here. You should notice a pattern that's happening here. 7 down to 5, down to 3. We're going down by 2. So if I plug in -2 times 1 and then add 3, that's -2 plus 3, which is 1. So the point 1, 1. And I can do the last one, -2 times 2 is -4. -4 plus 3 is -1. So the point is 2, -1. And you can connect those to make a nice line. The next equation we're graphing is x squared plus 2. Well, again, create our xy table from -2 all the way up to +2 so we can get enough of an idea of what our graph is going to look like. Plugging in -2, if I square it, -2 times -2 is +4. Add 2 gives me 6. So the coordinate is -2, 6. Plugging in -1, if I square it, -1 times -1 is 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. That point is -1, 3. Next is 0. 0 squared, 0 times 0 is 0. Add 2 to that is 2. The point is 0, 2. Now plugging in 1. 1 squared is 1. Add 2 to that gives you 3. 1, 3 is my point. Next, plugging in 2, we have 2 squared plus 2. 2 squared is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. You'll see a pattern happening on this one as well. We have created what is called a parabola or a U-shaped graph. anytime we are plotting 2 points, we can find the distance between these 2 points. Let's say A is this point over here, x1, y1, and B is this point over here, x2, y2. We want to find the distance between those 2 points. Well, the way we do that is by working with the horizontal distance, x2 minus x1, and the vertical distance, y2 minus y1, and the fact that these 3 things make a right triangle, so part of Pythagorean theorem. The formula then is that the distance between the 2 points is the square root of x2 minus x1 quantity squared plus y2 minus y1 quantity squared. Let's practice using that formula. Given 2 points, 5, 1, and 8, 5, let's find the distance. The first point is x1, y1. The second point is x2, y2. So all you have to do is plug into the formula. Square root of x2, 8 minus x1, 5, quantity squared, plus y2 minus y1, so 5 minus 1, quantity squared. Well, if we do that, 8 minus 5 is 3. 3 squared plus 5 minus 1 is 4 squared. Well, 3 squared is 9. 4 squared is 16. So now I have the square root of 9 plus 16. If I add 9 and 16 together, that gives me 25 under the square root. And the square root of 25 is 5. So the distance between those 2 points, those first 2 points, is 5 units apart. Next, we're going to find the distance between the points 2, 3, and 3, 5. Again, the first point is x1, y1. The second point is x2, y2. So we plug into our formula, x2 minus x1, so 3 minus 2, we'll square that. And then y2 minus y1, so 5 minus 3, and we will square that. 3 minus 2 is 1, which we will square, and 5 minus 3 is 2, which we will square. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4. So we have the square root of 1 plus 4, which makes the square root of 5. We cannot simplify the square root of 5, so this problem is done. Next, we want to find the distance between -4, -1, and 2, -3. Again, x1, y1, x2, y2, and we're just going to plug into our formula. So x2 minus x1, 2 minus -4, we will square that. y2 minus y1, -3 minus -1 quantity squared. Now, when you subtract a negative, that turns into plus. So 2 plus 4 is 6 squared. -3 minus -1 turns into +1. -3 plus 1 is -2, which we will square. Underneath the square root, 6 squared is 36. -2 squared is 4. So 36 plus 4 is 40. Now, 40 is not a perfect square, but we have worked with breaking these down previously. So 40 is 4 times 10 under the square root. Why did I pick 4 and 10? Well, because I can square root 4. The square root of 4 is 2, leaving me with the square root of 10 for a final answer of 2 root 10. One more pair of points, 0, -2, and 4, 3. So x1, y1, x2, and y2. Let's go to our formula. x2 minus x1, 4 minus 0. We will square that. Plus y2 minus y1, 3 minus -2, which we will square that as well. 4 minus 0 is 4, which we will square. 3 minus -2 is 5, which we will square. 4 squared is 16. 5 squared is 25. So under the root, we have 16 plus 25. If I add those two numbers together, I get the square root of 41. Now, 41 cannot be broken down into any perfect squares, so this one is done. formula we're going to work with is the midpoint formula. And what this is asking us is if we have 2 points, 2 end points, can you tell me where the middle is? So if we have end point, the midpoint is going to be in the exact middle of these 2 endpoints. The way we do that is we take x1 plus x2 divided by 2 and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. All 3 of these are having us finding the midpoint. Our first one here has 10, 4, and 2, 6. x1, y1, x2, y2. I'm going to put them in parentheses here because it is a coordinate. So add x1 and x2, 10 plus 2 divided by 2. And then we're going to do y1 plus y2 over 2. So 4 plus 6 over 2. Well, 10 plus 2 is 12. 12 over 2 is 6. 4 plus 6 is 10. Divided by 2 is 5. So the midpoint is 6, 5 for those 2 points. Next, number 9, -4, -7, and -1, -3. We'll always label my points, x1, y1, x2, y2, and then we can plug them in. So we're going to add the x's. -4 plus -1 has to be divided by 2. And -7 plus -3 has to be divided by 2. Well, -4 plus -1 is -5 over 2. Doesn't simplify, so I'm just going to leave it like that. -7 plus -3 is -10. Divided by 2 is -5. And there is your midpoint of that second pair of points. And our last one is finding the midpoint of -2, -1, and -6, 8. So x1, y1, x2, y2. Same process, add the x's. -2 plus -8, divide that by 2. And then add the y's. -1 plus 6, divide by 2. Well, -2 plus -8 is -10. If I divide that by 2, that gives me -5. -1 plus 6 is 5, which does not divide by 2, so I'm going to leave that as 5 over 2. And there's the midpoint of those 2 points. This is the end of this section, and you can go ahead and work on your homework.